Hello friends, my name is Dimitri and you are on the channel Life in Montenegro. You can contact me with any questions about immigration to Montenegro and life in the country. All my contact information, email, Viber, WhatsApp and Telegram can be found in the description of this video. So, today we are going to talk about taxes. This video will be of interest primarily to those entrepreneurs who have opened a company not just to obtain a residence permit, as many do, but in order to establish a truly operating business in Montenegro. The thing is, why did I even decide to make this video? I've already made many videos about taxes, and I have written many articles about taxes in Montenegro, but in 2022 we had a major, I would even say, fundamental tax reform that changed everything. And by the way, I have hardly come across any materials about this online, at least not any comprehensive ones. All my previous videos and articles on this topic are now outdated as well. So let's get started. I'll begin with VAT. Let me delve a bit into the history. When I first arrived in Montenegro in 2011, the VAT rate was 17%. Then at some point, I don't remember exactly which year, the VAT increased to 19% and eventually it was raised to 21%. Honestly, this kind of VAT increase doesn't make me happy at all. And I think none of you are pleased about it either, because VAT is a tax that directly affects prices. In other words, when VAT goes up, prices immediately rise as well. Not drastically, not sharply, but they do go up. It's quite noticeable. That's how it is. But nevertheless, even though 21% is still worse than the 17% we had in 2011, it should be said that in many European countries, VAT is even higher. For example, in Croatia, VAT is 25%. So 21% is still better than 25%. So what changes have there been with regard to this tax recently? This didn't happen in 2022, but it did happen at the end of 2021. That's why I decided to combine VAT with information about the changes in 2022 as well. Previously, VAT was not paid by small businesses whose annual revenue did not exceed 18,000 euros. In other words, up to 18,000 euros VAT was not paid. If you exceeded this limit, you automatically became a VAT payer. Now, this limit has been increased somewhat, which, to be honest, makes me very happy. At present, companies with annual revenue not reaching 30,000 euros are exempt from paying VAT. So, in my opinion, these changes are very positive. In other words, they have made life a bit easier for small entrepreneurs and small businesses. Yes, and it's also worth mentioning about VAT that it is not paid when exporting goods and services. For example, let's say you work in programming. In Montenegro, there are a lot of companies both actually operating and not where the company founder earns money through programming. And for example, you receive a certain amount from a foreign client into your company's account. So basically, this is a standard situation. I have quite a few clients like that. In this case, since the client is not Montenegrin but foreign, no matter what the amount is, even if it's more than 30,000 euros, you still don't pay VAT. In my opinion, that's also a very nice bonus. Alright, let's continue. Taxes, salaries. To make it clearer, I'll explain how it was before and how it is now. In 2022, starting from January onwards, the minimum wage was significantly increased. Previously, the net salary, that is, the amount paid out after taxes, was 250 euros. Now it's 450 euros. It would seem that with the increase in salary, taxes should automatically go up as well. Fortunately, that's not the case. Our taxes were significantly reduced. So let's take a look at how it was before and how it is now. In 2021, with a salary of 250 euros rather, your employer, meaning the company. In this case, your company paid 160 euros in taxes for the employee, who is usually the director, although some may have other employees as well. Now, with a salary that is almost twice as high, you pay 117 euros in taxes, which is 43 euros less. Here, I should add that many of you who regularly watch my channel already know that foreigners, especially foreign company directors, often opt for part-time employment in order to reduce the amount of taxes they pay. In this case, If you take a quarter time position, then in 2021 the tax was 40 euros, and in 2022 it was 29 euros, which is 11 euros less. I've rounded the numbers a bit everywhere here. Well, there's no point in saying exactly, for example, 40 euros and 9 cents. I just use whole numbers. It's easier to understand that way. Plus or minus 9 or 10 cents doesn't make any difference for you. So what else is interesting? Taxes and salaries are now differentiated. That's the right approach. In other words, the poor pay little, the middle class pays more, and the rich pay even more. And if your salary exceeds 700 euros per month, then in addition to the taxes you already pay on your salary, an additional income tax of 9% is applied. If your salary is less than 700 euros, you are exempt from paying this tax. Well, actually, your employer is exempt. In this case, that means your company. If your salary exceeds 1,000 euros, then the tax is not 9% but 15%. So taxes and salaries are now differentiated. In my opinion, this is a completely correct change. Previously, there was a single tax, meaning everyone paid taxes at the same rate. Profit tax. Profit tax. Again, let's look at how it was and how it is now. Previously, well, up until the current year, it was 9%. That is, all companies, regardless of how much profit they made, paid 9%. By the way, it was the lowest tax in Europe. Now, the profit tax has been raised, but not for everyone. Again, just like with the salary tax, it has also become differentiated. If your company is small and the profit is low, you pay less. If it's more, you pay more. If it's even more, you pay even more. So let me read out what we have now. If your profit does not exceed 100,000 euros, you pay 9% tax. If your profit exceeds 100,000 euros but does not exceed 1.5 million, you pay a fixed 9,000 euros plus 12% on the amount that exceeds 100,000 euros. So, yes, I think that's clear. If in the third scenario your profit is more than 1.5 million, then you pay a fixed 177,000 euros plus 15% on the amount that exceeds 1.5 million. So, again, you see, a progressive tax, in my opinion, is a very good solution. And by the way, when I was still deciding whether to accept it or not, it sparked a very broad discussion among politicians. Some politicians were quite reasonably concerned about whether Montenegro would lose its investment appeal if it raised the profit tax. Well, and I read this discussion. The article was in the local news, and it was put forward by one politician who actually came up with this bill. So he argued his point of view and said that our minimum tax is currently 9% and the maximum is 15%. There are no countries in Europe where the profit tax is less than 15%. Accordingly, nothing terrible will happen to our investment attractiveness. We will remain competitive, and investments will continue to flow into our country, just as we have seen in previous years, where indeed low taxes and some other factors have attracted quite a lot of investment to Montenegro. And the last tax worth discussing today is the tax on receiving dividends. In Montenegro, just like in other countries, and basically like in Russia, if money comes into a company, you can't just take it out and put it in your pocket. You need to withdraw it either as a salary, paying the corresponding salary taxes, or as dividends. Dividends in Montenegro have been paid before, and are still paid once a year, but the rate has changed. It used to be 9%, now it's 15%. And to be honest, this is the only change that I am not at all happy about. I believe it would be fair if the dividend tax, just like we saw with the profit tax and the salary tax, were differentiated. That is, again, if you receive relatively little, you pay less. If you receive a lot, then accordingly, you pay more. That would be fair. Right now, it seems to me that on the one hand, an extra 6% might not be anything drastically terrible, but still, it's a bit unpleasant for everyone. And I think they didn't quite think this through. Maybe they'll fix it someday in the future. Friends, thank you all for your attention, and see you next time.